What a wild week! Riot actually reworked the Mordekaiser skin, we got a new live-action League of Legends series pretty much confirmed, and Deltarune and Silksong got a release date! There is no way this can be topped. Is that a short story? Well, that's right. After Leblanc got her VGU, her universe site, which is where all the lore is, also got updated. And while her bio remained the same, she did get an entirely new short story, which is a big deal. Why? Well, these short stories used to drive the entirety of League's lore. Whenever one of these stories was dropped, the lore was progressing forward. And now we got a new one after 2 years of silence. That's right, the last short story we got was for Hui, and he got it at the end of 2023. Just to confirm, we are not dreaming, yes indeed, it is 2025 now. And so we got a new short story connected to the entire Noxian event called Everywhere and Everyone, which was written by Laurie Golding, who is pretty much a legend when it comes to writing League of Legends lore. And indeed, it is a really cool story that already explains quite a few bits that happened in the Noxian event, and it might also be teasing what's happening next. So without further ado, just like the good old times, let's dive into new lore. So this story is actually segmented into different parts. And first it starts in Freljord, right after Darius just fought Trundle. Here, the Noxian healers were taking care of Darius after the battle, and they were afraid that Darius might lose his hand from the frostbite of the true ice. Remember, normally when a mortal touches true ice, they just die. And it takes quite the extra strength to be able to handle it if you are not an Iceborn. Now here it is also revealed that the Noxian army got some help from some Freljordian priests, because in their eyes the Noxians were guests of the Frostguard. In other words, they were Lyssandra's guests, revealing that it was the Frostguard who helped Noxians navigate the Freljord, and they helped them learn the troll customs, because the Noxians tried to exploit them. Now this is strange, because at that time Trundle was already on Lyssandra's side, because he already had the true Ice Club. So it is strange to see the Frostguard helping Noxians here. But this might be happening for two separate reasons. Either the Frostguard were just getting ready to backstab the Noxians, or it is possible that Lysandra was once again looking for more Iceborn, which is why the priests were there just looking over Darius. After all, they were interested in how Darius was handling the frostbite. So there was the slight chance that Darius might have been an Iceborn. Anyway, here, one of Leblanc's clones was hidden here as a lowly squire. Now, what is interesting is that this story, as well as all the other stories that are coming up in a moment, are told from the perspective of one of the clones, where they all talk about the other clones as lesser sisters. This is all tied to a twist that happens at the very end, but it is really cool to see that all the clones are self-conscious. They are not just Leblanc clones, they actually behave like separate beings. And they all think that they are better than the other clones. Anyway, in this story, the illusion was so powerful that nobody was able to see through it. However, one of the Frost Priests was getting suspicious. Though the story mentioned that, just like a Jedi, the clone subconsciously told the priest that everything was fine. And the priest believed it. After which the clone walked outside of the camp, she dropped the illusion and she waited for the next opportunity to spy on someone. And after that, the story jumps right into another clone. This time it was a clone that was following Vladimir. Here, Lord Vladimir was walking through one of the Noxian marketplaces after a night spent at one of the noble house parties. The cool detail here is that one of these parties was likely hosted by someone called Edwin Cortain, whom you might remember as one of the members of the Crimson Cold from Legends of Runeterra. Though the story mentions it might have been also hosted by one of the Noradis, who are part of the Grey Legion. Anyway, here, the story makes sure to let us know that Vladimir was trying to be stealthy. Also, he was outside early in the morning, which was very suspicious for him. And so the clone, once again believing that it is better than the others, followed Vladimir as she wondered who was worth all of Vladimir's secrecy. This is where this part of the story ends. And it is curious to see that even though these two are partners in crime, Leblanc and Vladimir still don't fully trust each other. And maybe Vladimir is secretly seeing someone else. After which we get to another sister, and this time it is in Ionia. More specifically, this takes place in Phalor, a name which certainly brings joy to any Syndra main. Because Phalor is an island in Ionia, where the spirit of Ionia imprisoned Syndra in the Dreaming Pool. Long story short, Syndra is simply way too powerful and everyone was afraid of her. And so even the godly beings on this planet realized, hey, it might be better to just keep her in check. And so they dipped her into a special pool which makes people fall asleep. And she has been there for a while. At least until the point where Syndra got a special short story, where a group of Vastaya invaded the fortress that was overseeing this pool, and they freed Syndra, after which Syndra just ripped the entire fortress from the ground, and she floated with it into the distance. That's how Syndra's story ended, and so this story is happening before Syndra was awakened. Now, what is also cool is that this story technically gave us a timeline for the events. Because now we know that this is happening right at the end of the Noxian invasion. At this time it was mentioned that Swain already became the new Grand General, which means that he got back from the invasion and he killed Borem Darkwill, and he was the one who ordered the Noxians to retreat. So in short, it is all happening after Swain became the Grand General, but right before the Triforix was established. If all the stories are happening at the same time, this would explain why, for example, the banners behind Darius looked slightly different. Anyway, the one clone that is telling this story was just mad at Swain. She mentioned that they should have gotten rid of him right when they had the chance, but the other lesser sisters believed that he was no threat. Again, it is cool to see that all the clones are self-conscious. Anyway, here the clone assumed the appearance of a Noxian general, and she walked beneath the fortress and right to the Dreaming Pools. Of course, again, this is all happening before Syndra was awakened from her sleep, and since all the Noxian ships were leaving Ionia, the story mentioned that this was her last chance to check up on her, potentially. But when she arrived, she found another clone, who was standing over a dead body of a war mason, meaning the other clone likely assassinated them. In other words, Leblanc was now keeping an eye on sleeping Syndra. After this, the two clones greeted each other with arcane sigils, and then the clone telling the story left with all the Noxian ships. So, the important part from this bit is that, indeed, Leblanc might be interested in Syndra. It is likely she knows about the incredible powers she holds, and so potentially, maybe Leblanc was interested in recruiting Syndra into the Black Rose, just like someone like Mel. Which also makes me wonder, was Leblanc there when the Vastaya invaded Phalor and they woke up Syndra? It's hard to believe that Leblanc wouldn't be able to stop them, unless one of the Vastaya was Leblanc herself. Anyway, this takes us to the last story of the clones. This time, the clone was in the royal gardens of Demacia, the same place where the Lightshield family usually spent their time. Here, the clone was hidden as a gardener, and she was spying on the Seneschal. Now, in case you are wondering who that is, you probably haven't checked Xin Zhao's title in a while, because indeed, that is Xin Zhao, who previously protected Jarvan III in these gardens, before Jarvan III got assassinated. Now, the clone mentioned that Xin Zhao always woke up an hour before sunrise to do all of his daily duties, and he always looked to the east, perhaps in anticipation of the sunrise, or perhaps in the memory of his distant homeland. By this, the story is of course referencing Ionia, where Xin Zhao originally came from. Now after this, Xin Zhao bowed to the clone, believing that she was indeed a gardener. Here again, the clone believed that she was better than the other lesser sisters, because they would have failed against his warming gestures. Yes, that is actually part of the story. After which, Xin Zhao picked up the seed of a silver birch, and he continued on his way. Which is where this part of the story ends too. The important part here is Leblanc is spying on Demacia too, which takes us to the finale. This one takes us back to Leblanc, which might be the real one, who is staring at 1,000 morphing glyphs on a wall, which means we are likely back in the Pale Room. And she mentions that all the lesser sisters were scattered around the world. They were all ready to engage in grand schemes. But most importantly, as Leblanc points out, they all believed that they were the real Leblanc. That is why they all called all the other clones lesser sisters. With the story ending with the line, I suppose I should ask myself then, what do I believe? No matter, I am everywhere. I am everyone. And so then, here we have it, a new short story after 2 years of silence. And I'll be honest, it is a pretty good one. It's pretty good because it gave us a bit of a timeline. Now we know that all of this is happening after the Noxian invasion, and it is happening right when Swain took over Noxus, which could potentially also give us a timeline for Arcane, in case all of this is happening right before Mel arrives. Of course, on top of this, this all also seems to be a setup for what's gonna happen next with Leblanc. I mean, why else would they be releasing a short story? They haven't done this in a while. So perhaps this is all somehow linked to the Darkin. So let's just remember the important bits from this story. Leblanc was spying on Darius in the Freljord. She was spying on Vladimir in Noxus. She was spying on Syndra in Ionia. And she was spying on Xinjiao in Demacia. So maybe all of these are gonna be important for the story going forward. Which is hilarious, because if you have a look at the champions featured in all of these scenes, literally all of them have models that are at least 10 years old. So we can't even guess who's gonna be the next one getting a VGU.